सुन्दर रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा पीताम्बरधर रामा भयभीति विभञ्जन रामा पीताम्बरधर रामा भयभीति विभञ्जन रामा कल्याण सुन्दर रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा दशावतारा रामा दशमुखमर्दन रामा दशावतारा रामा दशमुखमर्दन रामा भक्तसुधामा रामा प्रियंकर रामा भक्त सुधामा रामा भक्त प्रियंकर रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा कल्याण सुन्दर रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा पीताम्बरधर रामा भयभीति विभञ्जन रामा दशावतारा रामा दशमुखमर्दन रामा भक्तसुधामा रामा भक्तप्रियङ्कर रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा कल्याण सुन्दर रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा कारुण्य जानकी रामा
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्मविद्याचार्याय nachiketase cha. Humble prostrations to one and all. So in the last class, we have seen the nature of the self and the way to realize the self. So what are the characteristics of the self? It is nityaha, eternal, nirvikaraha, free from all modifications, Chaitanya Swarupaha, of the nature of consciousness, Ananda Swarupaha, of the nature of bliss, Karya Karana Rahitaha, free from cause and effect, Atma, it is the very self in us, Akarta Abhokta, it is a non-doer and non-enjoyer. So these things we have seen. And how to gain this self? Atmasya jantor nihito guhaya. This self is there in the hearts of everyone. But who sees it? Tam akratuhu pashyati. The one who is dispassionate, he is able to see. What happens when you have dispassion? Dhatu prasadat. The mind and the senses become serene. In such a serene mind, such a mind is a disciplined mind, a tamed mind. That mind can be easily withdrawn and it can be easily focused into the heart space. And there, in such a pure mind, we get the experience of the Supreme Self, which is Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. And there we come to know Atmanaha Mahimanam, the glory of the self, as the only reality of this world, as the very support of the whole world, immortal, infinite, blissful. This glory we come to know, and thus this person becomes vita shoka, free from sorrows. But unless this mind is purified, unless the mind has been trained in dispassion, without all these virtues, there will only be confusion regarding the nature of the self. Asino duram vrajati shayano yati sarvataha. People will be confused with regard to self, whether it is existent, non-existence, pure, impure, the time, the place. All these things, there will only be confusion if an impure mind is used to enquire into the nature of the self. So again the glory of the self is sung. Next verse, it is a repetition of the same idea. The purpose of repetition is only one thing, to give seriousness to this aspect of the self. So now let us chant verse number 22, page number 138. Ashariram sharireshu anavastheshvavasthitam mahantam vibhumatmanam matva dhiro na shochati. Ashariram sharireshu anavastheshvavasthitam mahantam vibhumatmanam matva dhiro na shochati. Yes. So what is the nature of this self and where is it located? So its condition is being described here. Ashariram sharireshu. It is located in the body, in the bodies, sharireshu. But what is its condition? It remaining bodiless. Though bodiless, it is there in all the bodies. ashariram sharireshu, anavastheshu avasthitam. Though itself being permanent, it is there in all the impermanent entities. This is avasthitam, permanent, but where is it present? Present in all the impermanent bodies. So the contrast is being shown here. Though bodyless, present in all the bodies. Though permanent, present in all the impermanent entities. And what is his nature? Mahantam, Vibhum, Atmanam, this self which is Mahantam, great, glorious, Vibhum, all-pervading. Matva dhiro na shochati. Knowing this Atma, Dhira, the wise person, doesn't grieve. This is the point. So therefore, what is present here? The same idea is mentioned, nothing new. So what is the nature of this body? It is anavastheshu. Anavastha. What is anavastha? So Bhagavan Shankaracharya says anavastheshu means avasthiti rehiteshu. That which doesn't have avasthiti, a constant state. Avasthiti rehiteshu. So what is body? A body is a thing which doesn't have a constant state of existence. Continuously it is changing. Constantly it is changing. So that is the nature of the body. Anavastheshu. But what is the nature of the self? It is avasthitam. Constant change is the nature of the body. Changelessness is the nature of the self. How can we experientially know it? So in the last class we have seen, body is changing. It is going through various stages. Childhood, adulthood, old age. The body is going through various changes. These are all different avasthas, changes. But the one who is observing this change is changeless. How do you know it is changeless? It is changeless because he is able to remember all these changes. Very many people, they carry the album. They have all the photos of all their years and they have collected them. So very many times they show this album and say, Swamiji, see, this is the album. So this is the photo when I was in LKG. Can you guess where I am? So a puzzle is given. So now you have to search. There are so many little fellows. Which face matches with this fellow? So a lot of change happens in the body. So the point is this, there is somebody in us, there is some entity in us which doesn't change, which is just observing all these changes. It is just a witness to all these changes. It is aware of all these changes. The scriptures say, shift your attention to this changeless entity in you. It's very useful. Now and then, shift the attention there to the witness in you, to the changeless entity in you. This is the way to come out of sorrow. That's what the scripture says. Anavastheshu avasthitam. The law of life is, if your attention is, if your identification is with the change, you will experience change. And change is very unsettling. We want to settle in life. Settling in life is not Just that when you get married, you have a home, you have children, Swamiji, I am settled. No. The real settling is when you settle in this changeless entity in you. Because the body changes and a time will come when the body will die. Death of the body is very, very miserable for a person who is identified with the body. So therefore, if a person has to experience a state beyond sorrow, there is no other way but to disidentify from the body and identify with the self. So what happens to a person when he shifts his attention upon this consciousness? Changes are happening, but as far as he is concerned, his experience is changelessness. Why? Because changelessness is the nature of the self, and that is where his identification is. So what happens exactly when the body falls dead? When the body falls dead, what about his experience? His experience will continue to be changelessness, because his identification is with the changeless self. His experience continues to be Ananda, because Ananda is the nature of the self. Now please understand this, body is dropped dead, but his experience continues to be Satchidananda if his identification is with the self. So again and again, Shruti Mata is telling, shift your attention there. That is the only place where you can have peace. Ashariram sharireshu anavastheshu avasthitam. But what happens when we identify with the body? Body constantly changes. It has anavastha. It doesn't have a constant state of existence, constant change. So when you are identified with this change, your experience is change, and change is always misery. What happens when we identify with the body? Number one, so what is said here is there is only shoka when we identify with the body. There is only misery. Why there is misery? What is body? The main problems of the body are birth is painful, death is painful, disease is painful, old age is painful. So number one, when I identify with the body, there is pain. Number two, everything in this body is limited. What is my nature? Mahantam, great, infinite. So what happens when I identify with my body? I start experiencing limitation, imperfection, suffocation, because everything in this body is limited. The abilities are limited, the strength is limited, talents limited, capacity limited, everything is limited. But what is my true nature? Limitlessness is my true nature. But because of the identification with the body, it is like I have been packed. An infinite being has been packed in this finite cage of the body. So what happens when an infinite being is packed in a finite little body? There is suffocation. That infinite being will feel as though it is jailed, as though it is caged. So what is experience? Experience is that of suffocation, imperfection, dissatisfaction, discontentment. Pujya Gurudev used to give the example. Assume that the size of your leg is 9 and we are wearing a shoe which is of the size 8, what will be your experience? Misery, isn't it? So just when the size has reduced to 1 division, if this much of misery is there, how much misery must be there when that infinite being is restricted to this little 5 feet, 6 feet body? How much misery must be there? This is called a shoka, sorrow. Now a question may come, why is it that we think we are the body? Who taught us that we are the body? How did this ignorance come that we are the body? Now this is a very interesting question, because consciously we have not trained our mind, we have not educated the mind that we are the body. Then how did we conclude that we are this body? Well, interestingly we find all the factors appear when we analyze this world superficially, when we analyze our experiences superficially. We find, when we analyze it without the guidance of the scriptures or Mahatmas, we find that we are the body. All the factors seem to support this statement that we are the body. For example, I see my existence only when the body is there. At least not in my case, but in others' case I see it. When that body emerges, that individual emerges. And when that body is dead, that individual is also no more available for transaction. So therefore I conclude that a person is nothing but the body, and therefore I am nothing but the body. Also I find whatever is happening inside this body, I am able to experience it. If there is a pain, I know it. But the moment I go beyond the borders of this body, beyond the boundaries of the body, I am not able to experience it. So therefore again I tend to conclude that this boundary of the body is my boundary, this is my limit. So therefore I am restricted to this body. See, whatever is happening in this body I am aware, whatever is happening outside I am not aware, therefore this body is me. When the body exists, I exist. When the body dies, I die. So therefore this body is me. Experiences in this body, I am aware, therefore this body is me. So slowly, I tend to identify with this body and define myself equal to this body. I look around, I find that everybody is living in the same way. Not only human beings, plants, animals, birds, insects, all are living in their own restricted bodies. Their experience is same as my experience. Even among the human beings also it is the same. This is what I find. Whether rich, poor, illiterate, literate, educated, uneducated, jnani, ajnani, male, female, everywhere I see the same experience in them, just like I find the experience in me. So therefore, it's like a confirmation. Majority of the people, rather all the people, they take their body to be themselves, therefore I am this body. So what happens? The greatest tragedy happens. I never inquire into my own self. This is what happens. And this way I have been living from the infinite past, beginningless past. So constantly I have been living in ignorance, and therefore this ignorance is well rooted, firmly established, as though like a huge tree, Ashwatha tree. This is what 15th chapter says. In this Kathopanishad also that same example will come. Well rooted, firmly rooted. I am so clear that I am this body that not even once I doubt this statement that I am this body. All my transactions happen in this world keeping this knowledge at the back of the mind that I am this body. To such an extent that this knowledge has penetrated within me that even in dream, if I am a man in the waking, then in the dream also I continue to be a man. See, to that extent, this notion has entered into me that I am this body. What happens when we identify with this body? Number one, there is pain, as I have told. Old age, death, disease, it is nothing but shoka, sorrow. Then there is limitation, that is again sorrow. Then there is a feeling of insecurity because the body, if not taken care well, it can die. I see people dying. So therefore this fear is there, I may also die. Now why is it that people fear death so much? Death is one thing which can take everything from us. Whatever we have earned, all gone. Our near and dear ones, all gone. Our position, everything gone. The name, fame, everything gone. Remember, whole life I have been working for all these with great effort. Whatever I have earned, name, fame, power, possession, whatever I have earned, everything I lose the moment I die. I think I have settled here, but the one thing which is very unsettling, which can unsettle me, is this phenomenon called death. And after death, what happens? I don't know. I don't know what happens after death. Where will I go after death? I don't know. So therefore, the most scary thing is death. For a person who is identified with the body, the most scary thing. So there is insecurity when I identify with the body. And again, the moment we live in this world as a body, we depend so much on the world. We depend on things, beings and situations. So a lot of dependence is also there. And what is the problem with the world? The world is impermanent world. Means what? Someday or the other, these things, beings and situations will leave me. So this causes another sorrow. The sorrow of union or sorrow of separation. So in short, living in this body is nothing but sorrow, shoka. This we have to understand. But what happens to a man of realization? He is a wise man, dhīraha. You see, again and again this term dhīra is coming, dhīra. So what does he do? Even while living itself, he does not commit this error, this mistake of identifying with the body. He gains the knowledge from the scriptures and works hard upon himself. Intensely meditates. What does he do in meditation? Withdrawing the attention from the body and paying attention to the self. What is the self? Ashariram sharireshu anavastheshu avasthitam. This witness in me, this witnessing consciousness in me, this I in me, this changeless substratum in me, shift your attention there. Make the mind abide there. Then what happens? Nashochati, you go beyond grief. You overcome all sorrows when your mind firmly abides in the self. When you gain self-knowledge, the greatest benefit is you become free from all sorrows. Is there any other way in which I can be free from sorrow? There is no other way. If you want to permanently be free from sorrow, there is no other way other than disidentification from the body and identification with the self. There is no other way. So such a wise man, dhīraha na shochate, he doesn't grieve. So what is the sign of a wise man? The sign of a wise man is he has wisdom. And what is the sign of wisdom? The sign of wisdom is there is no grief. The same thing is mentioned in Bhagavad Gītā also. When Arjuna was crying and weeping in the battlefield, in the 2nd chapter it comes, Bhagavan opens his mouth and tells this as the first verse. Ashocyan anvashocastvam prajñāvādanscha bhāshase gatasun agatasunscha na anushochanti panditāhā. Arjuna, you speak the words of wisdom, but there is no indication as far as your body language is concerned. There is no indication of any wisdom. Because on the one side, you are talking big things. Entire 1st chapter, it was Arjuna who was talking. In the beginning of the 2nd chapter also, it was Arjuna who was talking. He was giving advice to Krishna. Let us withdraw from this war. What we are doing is wrong, etc., etc., etc. So Bhagavan says, Arjuna, you speak like a wise man, prajñāvādanscha bhāshase. But you don't appear wise because you are grieving. You are drowning yourself in sorrow. That itself shows that what you speak is not wisdom, it is only ignorance. Because the sign of wisdom is anushochanti panditāhā. The wise people, panditāhā, those who have this knowledge of the self, panditāhā, na anushochanti, they don't grieve. The sign of wisdom is freedom from all kinds of grief. Gatasun, agatasunṣ. With regard to people who are dead, dying or alive, whoever they may be, Arjuna, the sign of wisdom is this person doesn't grieve. And therefore the very fact that you are grieving shows that there is no wisdom in your words. This is how Bhagavad Gītā starts, with a definition of a wise man, of a man of knowledge. So the same point is mentioned here, mattva dhīro na shochati. Bhagavad Gītā, the teaching begins with self-knowledge, saying, Arjuna, natvevāham jātunāsam, natvam neme janādhipāha, nachaiva na bhavishyāmaha sarve vayamatah param. Arjuna, these kings, all those people who you are seeing, in the past also they were there, now also they are here, in the future also they will be there. It is only the body which is going to die, nobody is going to die. Every body dies, nobody dies. This is how Bhagavad Gītā begins. The same point is beautifully mentioned here. So the only way to come out of suffering and sorrow, etc., is to put an end to body identification. This is the unanimous declaration of the scriptures. What is ajnana? Ajnana is nothing but ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of myself. How does it express itself? Ignorance about myself expresses itself as identification with the body. This is how ignorance expresses itself. So what is knowledge? Disidentification with the body, identification with the self. Now comes a very important verse, a very famous verse, a very useful verse for all the seekers. So let us chant verse number 23, page number 139. Nāyamatmā pravachanena labhyah na medhayana bahuna shrutena यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम् नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यः न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमेवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यः तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम्. So what is said here? I am Atma, this Atma, this self, pravachanena nalabhyah. This self cannot be gained by pravachana. Pravachana generally means discourse on scriptures, but here Bhagavan Shankaracharya says pravachana means study of the Vedas. So this Atma, this self, cannot be gained by the study of the Vedas. Na medheya, not by your intelligence. Na bahuna shrutena, not by listening to it for too long. Listening too much. Or by learning too much about it. No. So all these sadhanas are ineffective. Then Bhagavan, how to gain it? Yam eva esha vrunute tena labhyaha. The one who chooses the self, he gets it. The one who chooses the self, he gets it. Esha atma tasya swam tanum vivrunute. So what happens when a person chooses the self? It is said, this self, esha atma, what does it do? Swam tanum vivrunute. It reveals itself to such a person who has chosen the self. So all the sadhanas which we do, they are all ineffective. The most important sadhana is to choose the self. This is what the scriptures say. And once you choose the self reveals itself to such a person. Now this is a very, very important point which we all have to keep in mind. What decides progress in spirituality? What decides our attainment of the self? What decides self-realization? So here there is only one thing mentioned. Have you chosen it as the ultimate goal of life? Vivrunute. Do you consider it as the most important thing in life? Have you chosen the Supreme Self as the ultimate goal? Now this is called as choice. What have you chosen in this world? Have you chosen the world or the Supreme Self? Supreme Self or God, they are all one and the same. What have you chosen? Now this point is very important. So when a seeker feels that as long as I am existing in this body, there cannot be peace and happiness for me. As long as I am identified with this body, there cannot be peace and happiness for me. Misery only will continue, pain only will continue. As long as I know myself to be this body, there is no way in which I can put an end to grief. This worldly existence is full of pain and misery. This bodily existence is nothing but concentrated misery. When a person has this understanding, there is no way in which I can find peace and solace in this worldly, bodily existence. And there is only one way in which I can find peace, and that is abidance in the self. There is no way in which I can find peace and happiness other than existing as self, other than turning my attention to self, other than abiding in the self. When a person has this kind of firm conviction, a clear understanding about life, a strong vairagya born out of viveka. So what is a viveka? Viveka is there is nothing but misery and pain in this world. This is viveka. There is only misery in this world. And then what is the result of this viveka? Vairagya, renunciation of this world. Vairagya for what? In order to abide in the self. So what is the most important thing? Most important thing is understanding the, you see. It is this understanding which makes you aware that this world is nothing but pain and pain alone. It is this understanding which makes you dispassionate towards the world. It is this understanding which makes you choose the self and self alone. Yamaivesha vrunute. Tena labhya. Such a person gets it. So what is the understanding of a wise man? This world is concentrated misery. Now please understand, this is not a pessimistic understanding. It is a realistic understanding. Very many people say, oh, he is very pessimistic, only negative thinking. It is not negative thinking, it is realistic thinking. It is a reality of life. My body will have to go through misery after misery, not one birth, many births. Is it reality or pessimism? It is reality. As long as I am in this body, there is only misery, not one birth, many births. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Go into some world, come back, again go through the same thing, old age, death, disease. Again go to some world, come back again, old age, death, disease. Now what is this? A sensitive person, an evolved person, a wise person will see only misery in this existence. Intense misery. So there is a choiceless situation in front of all of us. There is a helpless situation in front of all of us. And what is that helpless, choiceless situation? The situation is, as long as this body I exist, I will be miserable. Only crying and weeping, complaining and grumbling will be my lot. This is the choiceless, helpless situation for a wise man. In fact, this is the labor pain before the child comes out, before liberation. There is a labor pain, isn't it? So there is a pain of misery. There is a pain of helplessness. There is a pain of choicelessness. There is a pain of suffocation. And you will find that all great ones had this pain. Arjuna also had this pain. It is from this pain that Bhagavad Gītā was born. What was the understanding of Arjuna? So that verse is there. Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat yacchokamuchoshanamindriyanam avapya bhūmāvasapatnamruddham rajyam suranam api chādhipatyam. Arjuna says, Bhagavan, I don't see any way in which I can be happy. Even the most conducive circumstance, the environment which you can think of. What is the most conducive environment? Avapya bhūmau asapatnam ruddham. Prosperity. Okay, then asapatnam, unrivaled prosperity. And then unrivaled kingdom. The whole world you have got. Avapya bhūmau. The whole bhumi is yours. The entire earth is yours. You are ruling it. There is no one, no enemy, There is plenty of prosperity, everything is there. Even then, Bhagavan, this sorrow which I am going through, it is not going to go. Rajyam Suranam api chadhipatyam. Even if you make me the emperor of the heavens, Indra Padavi you give me, this sorrow is not going to go. Now, this is called a perfect understanding about this world. I am placed in a miserable situation, in a miserable body, where the end result is only misery, misery, misery. Are you seeing life as full of misery? Then your understanding about world is perfect understanding. Do you think life is full of joy and merrymaking? Then your understanding is absolutely wrong. The right understanding of a wise man is this world is nothing but misery. If our understanding is something different from this, then our understanding is not yet perfect. At every level there is only misery. Every level. This is something we have to again and again reflect upon, meditate upon. Meditate upon the miseries of life. You may become sad, it's okay. That sadness is good. Entire Bhagavad Gītā started with Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Why Vishada? He sees misery. It is from Vishada the spirituality has to take birth. It is from sorrow that spirituality has to take birth. If everything is going fine and if you see happiness everywhere, what is the need of spirituality then? Spirituality is meant for people who are able to see pain and pain alone in this world. And that is the reality also. This is not only the condition with Arjuna. Arjuna says, Bhagavan, I don't see any possibility of getting rid of this sorrow. Whatever be the conducive environment. Afterward, at the most, what happens? At the war and after the war, I will win, I may get the kingdom, I will get all, but this sorrow is not going to go. That's what he says. And his understanding is right. Remaining in Jiva Bhava, you can never get rid of misery. The same thing is said by Nachiketa also. We have seen this verse earlier. Nachiketa is given the joy of family, the joy of prosperity, the joy of kingdom, long life, everything was given, but what was his comment? Nachiketa say, I don't find any peace and solace in all this because Shobhava martyasya adantakaitat sarvendriyanam jaryanti tejaha api sarvam jivitam alpameva tavaiva vahas tavandritya gite. The same thing. Oh Lord, whatever you are saying, it is not going to give me peace, happiness. Everything is full of misery only. So this is the state of mind of a true mumukshu. So he finds that there is no peace and solace in the world, in the body. There is only one place where I can find peace and solace, and that is in abidance in the self. Self alone can give me peace. In the language of devotion, instead of self, you will have to use the term God. Both are one and the same. What does Bhagavad Gītā say? Devi hesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. Surrender unto me alone, then only you can cross over this maya. So in here, in Upanishad, the term used is self. That's all. There is no other way. So, such a person who has come to this conclusion that self alone can give happiness, God alone can give happiness, there is no other way to happiness, such a person is called a spiritual seeker. What is he seeking? Spirit. Spirit means self. Spiritual, this term comes from the term spirit, which is nothing but self, consciousness. So, spiritual seeker is the one who seeks spirit. So, such a person is called a spiritual seeker. Such a person can be called a mumukshu. Such a person be called a jitnyasu. And such a person is called sannyasi. Sannyasi, the one who has done nyasam, giving up, renunciation. How? Samyak nyasam. Very well renouncing. Means what? With a thorough understanding about the nature of the life, he is renouncing. So these are the different terms used. Sannyasi, jitnyasu, mumukshu, spiritual seeker. Who is the other one? The other one is called samsari. The one who finds peace and solace in samsara, the world is called a samsari. Just because you are doing sadhana doesn't mean you are a spiritual seeker. Now this is a most important point. You may be doing all kinds of spiritual sadhanas mentioned in the scriptures, but that will not make you a spiritual seeker. This is the point. You may be singing the glories of the Lord, you may be doing japa, you may be doing shravana, manana, nididhyasana, you may be doing all this pravachana, shravana, medha is there, everything is there. You may be doing some tapas also, Vedic chanting also, bhajans also, study of the scriptures also. You may be doing everything, but that will not make you a jitnyasu or a mumukshu. Please keep this in mind. Hiranyakashipu also did tapas. What a tapas it was. Standing on one toe, hands raised, looking at the sun. As far as tapas is concerned, he is far, far better tapasvi. But what was the problem? What was he seeking? He was not seeking the self, he was seeking the world. How do we know? We know it when he asked what he wanted. I don't want to die, I want to rule the three worlds, etc., etc. So what was he seeking? He was seeking the world. So just because you are doing tapas doesn't mean that you are a spiritual seeker, that you are a holy man. No, no, no. Just because you are doing spiritual practices in no way means you are a mumukshu or a jitnyasu. No. Everything depends on your understanding about life. And understanding will decide what you desire in life. And your desires will ultimately decide what you will work for in life. Where will you invest your life? Depends on your desires. Desires depends on your understanding of life. So the most important thing is right understanding. Ravana was a great scholar. He was a great devotee also. He used to chop his head and give it to Bhagavan. Just imagine, 10 heads, one by one he was giving offering unto the Lord. Such a great devotee, great scholar also, very great pandita. But what was his choice in life? Choice was never the self. Bhasmasura also did tapas. So many people we find doing tapas, but they are not jitnyasus or mumukshus. So this is very, very important. What is my understanding about life? What am I seeking in life? What is the goal which I have kept for myself in life? As long as I think that remaining in the body in this world I can be happy, then this understanding is faulty. This faulty understanding will make you very lukewarm in spirituality. A person may be doing a lot of japa, hours together, so many malas, thousands of malas he may be doing, but if the understanding is not correct, the whole thing is gone. And that is why here it is said, Nayamatma pravachanena labhya na medhya na bhuna shrutena. Now here 2, 3 only samples are given. Some samples of sadhana. Now these are all very, very powerful sadhanas. Pravachana, study of the Vedas. Medha, high intelligence. Shrutena, listening, satsang, shravanam. They are all very powerful means of gaining the self. Shruti Mata says even these powerful means are going to be useless, ineffective, if we don't choose self as the ultimate goal of life. The most important thing is understanding. There are so many scholars who have studied the entire Shankara Bhashya. But what happened? Shankara Bhashya, which all the great sadhakas, mumukshus, they study to understand the scriptures. The very same scripture has been studied by the scholars. But what has happened? Nothing has happened. Why? This was missing. Choosing God, choosing the self, that was missing. So who are they? They are samsaris only. For the sake of some name, fame, position, some recognition, some certificate, some job, some profession, they studied this. And therefore the benefit of this study, which is liberation, it never came to them. So that's why this is so important. Choice in life. So there are only 2 categories of people, sannyasi, samsari. Sannyasi is the one who renounces everything and chooses the self. Samsari is the one who chooses the world and even sometimes makes God a means to gain the world. They are also samsaris only. Externally they may appear to be devotees, doing so many sadhanas. Japa sadhana, tapa sadhana, studying of the scriptures, they may be doing everything, but they are not seekers, they are samsaris only. They are spiritual samsaris, we can say. Making use of the spiritual sadhana in order to gain samsara. So this clarity has to be there. If this clarity is not there, we have to cultivate this clarity. If the intense desire for the self is not there, we have to cultivate this intense desire. Intense desire for the self. The law of life is whatever you intensely desire, that you will definitely get. Because whatever you intensely desire, you will have time for it, you will work hard for it, you will invest your life for it. So naturally you will have to get it. So let us try to find out what is that desire in me. In which direction is it? Is it towards God or is it towards world? In Mukunda Mala there is a beautiful verse which says, Amnayabhyasananyaranyaruditam Vedavratanyanvaham Medacheda phalani purta vidhayah Sarve hutam bhasmani Tirthanam avagahanani chagaja Snanam vinayat pada Dvandvam bhoruha samsmritir vijayate Devasya Narayanaha. So here Kulashekara Alvar says, all these sadhanas are a waste if you have not chosen God as the ultimate goal. What are the sadhanas? Amnayabhyasanam, Amnayabhyasanani, the study of the Vedas, the chanting of the Vedas. What are they? Aranyaruditam. It is nothing but cry in the forest. You are loudly shouting in the forest. That's all your Vedic chanting is. If God is not the goal, it's a waste. Veda vratani medacheda phalani. All these upavasas etc. you take, fasting etc. If the purpose of fasting is not God, then it is only medacheda phalani. Yes, it will give result. What is the result? You will become slim and trim. That's all. It is more of a dieting than fasting. It is not an upavasa. It is dieting. You eat less so that your body weight is gone. Extra fat is burnt away. Yes, that result will be there. But don't expect spiritual results. Purta vidhayaha sarve hutam bhasmani. All the homa, havana, yaga etc. you do where you offer so many things in this fire, homa kunda. So here Kulashekara Alvar says it is nothing but offering things in bhasma, in the ashes. There is no fire only. Meaning all are useless. Tirthanam avagahanani gajasnanam. You take dip in the holy waters of Ganga etc. It is nothing but gajasnanam. The bathing of an elephant. What does this elephant do? It goes, the mahot, he rubs and scrubs and cleans, gives a wonderful bath for the elephant. So the elephant is fresh. It comes out of the river. What is the first thing it does? It takes mud and sprinkles upon it. Becomes dusty, rolls on the mud. So what is the use? No use at all. In fact, it becomes more dirty also, because now the body is wet. In a wet body, what happens when it rolls in the mud? More dirt. So it is possible that all these sadhanas which we do, it may only create more and more ego. We may tend to believe I am, holier than thou attitude it's called. I am a greater sadhaka, greater tapasvi, highly advanced in spirituality. Ego only will grow. All the sadhana is done to efface the individuality, efface the ego. Now what has sadhana done? This sadhana has only intensified the ego. Such a possibility is there. So therefore, the point is, they are all wonderful sadhanas, no doubt. We are not criticizing sadhanas, please. Please keep this in mind. Here we are not criticizing the sadhana. What are we criticizing? We are criticizing the purpose for which the sadhana is done. Is the purpose God or is the purpose world? This is the point. It is possible that all these sadhanas can be done for the world. Chanting the name of the Lord can be done for the world. Japa can be done for the world. So this is the point which every one of us we have to keep in mind. So here the criticism is not pravachana or medha or shravana. No. In fact, these names are given only to glorify these sadhanas. But to say that even these great sadhanas are of no use if your choice is not right. Pravachana is a wonderful sadhana. Study of the Vedas, it is necessary because it gives direction in life. What to do with life? What is the purpose of life? What are the sadhana? Everything you get only when you study the scriptures. Medha is important. If you want to reflect, mananam if you have to do, you have to remember all this, whatever I said in the scriptures. Medha is important. Intelligence, memory is important. Shravanam is important. Bahuna sutena. Shravanam is important. In fact, wise people, Mahatmas, after realization also they keep on doing Shravanam. But then, what kind of Shravanam is it? God is the goal. Keeping that as the goal, Shravanam is done. So this way we have to understand. So the one who chooses the self, what happens? The self reveals itself to such a person. Meaning, such a person gains this highest knowledge. So who gains? The one who chooses the self gains. So now we have to ask this question to ourselves. Have I chosen God? Or have I chosen the world only? Now this is a very subjective question we have to ask ourselves. And if I have chosen the world, why is it that I have chosen the world and why is it that I am not able to choose God? Choose the self. Ask yourself this question and pray to the Lord, Bhagavan, make me choose you, not the world. Make me choose you. Only by your grace and blessings I can choose you. So this way pray to the Lord, and definitely the prayer will be answered. Again a warning is given in the next verse also, that we will see in the next class. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.